We are live. Thank you for tuning in. Now, I am Kevin Tumlinson. I'm one half of the founding team of Author Email. The other half is currently to my right, my left. It's hard to tell on this thing, man. But Nick Thacker, how's it going, man? Are we on delay again?
It's going. It's a little touch and go there. As soon as it went live, yeah, we're on a delay, and as soon as it went live, you froze. And so I just picked up right at the end of that. How you doing?
I am good. It's a little chilly.
So that's how
here.
it's going.
All right. Well, that's pretty typical. But we're going to get through this. So if you are watching, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you're dropping questions into the comments below this video, wherever you happen to be watching on Facebook or YouTube. We'll answer those questions as we go, but we're going to be presenting a little something. Nick's worked something up for us, and we're going to be talking about how you can level up your mailing list, which we always tell people is the most, and I hope I'm not frozen. Nick, am I still frozen?
No, well, kind of, but not really. I can hear you. I can hear you, though.
Okay, we always tell everyone that one of the most important things in your author marketing is your mailing list. And one of the things that I've always liked for us, about us, we don't just tell you that you need a mailing list. We actually answer that question of how you build a mailing list. So we're happy to answer questions that pop up. But Nick, why don't you take the reins here? What do you want to pop up a presentation, or you got something else you want to say first?
No, let's go ahead and pop it.
All right, here we go.
Just kind of intro as we go. Yeah, so like I mentioned, this is leveling up your mailing list, and we all know that 2020 is almost over. Thank the Lord. 2021 is about to start, and if you, as an author, are just thinking about a mailing list, or if you've got a mailing list but want to bring it to the next level, which I think would be all of us, this hopefully will be a presentation you're going to want to pay attention to. As Kevin mentioned, there are comments. We can see both YouTube and Facebook comments. So if you have a question, don't wait till the end. We may answer them at the end, but go ahead and put a comment in now so we can get it in the queue, if you will. So let's talk about mailing lists. The idea here is to take what you've currently got and make it better. Or if you don't have a mailing list, to get one. Let's go a couple slides later. Oh, sorry. I'm the slides guy, aren't I, Kevin? I'm sorry.
You're the one controlling this. Yeah.
I'm in control. I was thinking you were my slides guy. I was going to go next. I might still do that, but it'll be for me. So we wanted to, as most presentations go, it's usually really important to fill the space with some really good quotes, like this one. Mailing lists are really neat. That's true, random internet person. Mailing lists are really neat. More importantly, they're really helpful for actually making money as an author. They're the kind of thing that can take you from writing books and having your mom and your friends read them to having all kinds of people around the world who you've never ever met read them. Now, most of you out there listening to this, you know that already, right? You have heard that before. You know that you're supposed to have a mailing list. But some people that I've talked to recently, I know Kevin's kind of in the same boat with this. We're kind of asking the question, is email still the thing? Is email still what we're supposed to be doing? And the answer to that, I say, is yes. Next question. Would you agree with that, Kevin? Is it still kind of the thing that we should be focusing on?
It is the thing. To me, it's always been the thing, the biggest thing, or the first thing. But yeah, and we are acknowledging that there's, this is often going to be in conjunction with other marketing resources, marketing efforts. But I think still to this day, email is the number one author marketing tool.
Absolutely. Yes. And we're going to get into why throughout this presentation, but it really is a thing. And just, again, like I said, we're going to get into it, but one of my favorite reasons why is it's typically free to start.
Yeah.
As far as getting people onto a list. I mean, you don't have to have any fancy active campaign autoresponder series and pay a bunch of money to these guys every month. You can just literally get email addresses on a spreadsheet and then send an update when you get a book. Now, that's the basic version of it, but there's nothing wrong with that. And that's totally free. That's absolutely free to do. Now, if you are joining us and you have not started this mailing list thing that we're talking about, we've got a few just real quick, easy rules. Rule number one is always, like I just said, it's start, do something. If you've got a simple website, or even if you don't, if you've got a book that is out there on Kindle or something, you can put a link in the back of Kindle, of that Kindle version, and link it to just a simple free web page, Google form, for example, and just start collecting people's email addresses. Oftentimes we shoot ourselves in the foot by never starting what we think we need to do because we don't know the best way to do it. The best way to do it, as far as mailing lists go, is just start something. That kind of goes into rule number 2, right? Make it easy. Make it easy for yourself. If you don't know anything about internet programming or anything like that, you don't have a website, get a Google form that's free, and you can drop that link into the back of Kindle books or whatever you want to do. And then make it easy for your readers as well. Make it as painless as possible to sign up. This gets into a little bit more, programmatically speaking, having a good website that works well, and maybe integrating with a tool like BookFunnel, which we highly recommend. This is where it can get a little more complicated for you, but the goal is to make it as easy as possible for your reader to sign up. And then rule number 3, I think this is Kevin's rule here, and I wholeheartedly agree with it, is ask people to sign up for your mailing list, right?
Yeah, I still say that's the number one thing people forget to do.
Yeah. They're just humble. They don't want to, come across as spammy. But the rule is your book is probably something there are people out in the world that want to read. Your book is something there are people in the world who want to read what you write, is what I should say. Right. And in order for them to hear about it, they need to hear about it. So ask people to sign up. And we're going to get into what works, like things like freebies and incentives for them to sign up. But you have to ask people to sign up. You have to put that call to action there somewhere. Yeah. Moving on real quick, getting into the meat of things. Kevin and I put this list together a little while ago, and this is what works back in the day, back in the young, salad days of the internet and Kindle and writing books in the Wild West. Back then, you used to be able to do things like offer freebies on your website. So a free book or a free short story, for example. Advertising, of course, was a good way to build up your mailing list. And then list swaps. This is where, Kevin says, hey, Nick, I've got a book coming out. Will you promote this book to your list? And I'll do the same for one of your books. Call to actions, we just mentioned those used to work really well. InstaFreebie was the name of a website. I think they're still around. Are they still around, Kevin?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think they changed their name.
I think they changed their name, didn't they? Yeah. Anyway, as you can tell, this is probably not one of the things that still works very well, or it's not the thing that we use. But the idea was you go to a website and you find people to do group swaps and promos with. And then emailing PDFs was something that you used to have to do before we had fancy things like the .mobi file or the .epub file. You used to grab a PDF of your print version and send it to people via email, and 9 times out of 10 it would end up in junk or spam or something like that. There's Douglas. I figured somebody's going to jump in and help us out. Prolific Works, that's what it was.
Prolific Works. I knew it was something like that. Thanks, Douglas.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Douglas. That's why we invited him to these things. So moving forward then, what works now? What are the things that still are working that we're finding useful for building a mailing list? It turns out most of the things we mentioned are still great ways to build a mailing list. People have complained about things like market saturation, or there's too many books out there, not enough readers. And I can say confidently that that's not the case. Every day, even though you may have fewer and fewer people signing up for your mailing list, there are that many people at least getting a Kindle for the first time, or going to their local library and finding out that they can download ebooks on their e-reader. All kinds of things. Or people that are growing up and finding the internet for the first time and ending up buying a bunch of books on Kindle. These are things that happen every single day. And so we kind of forget that the market is expanding. Even as we try to fill it, the market is expanding. And I'm going to, educated guess here. I don't think anyone here is, like a John Grisham level as far as readership and how wide they are. So there's always room for us to grow. Well, except for Kevin. But that means we always grow, right? And I think even John Grisham could stand to gain a few more readers, right? Probably would argue that. Absolutely.
Me and Johnny G are always talking about how to up our readership. And
We are.
we're
Or
always
at least we're
talking
talking
about our
about.
mailing list.
Yeah.
Johnny G.
So these are all still things that work. Instead of InstaFreebie or Works, one of the things a lot of people tend to go toward is a site called BookFunnel. I use it for a lot of things. They have group promotions available there. It's sort of a hub for all sorts of engagement. Another website like that is Story Origin. Our friend Evan started that. There's just all kinds of ways authors are connecting with readers, and it all sort of revolves around getting people onto your mailing list. And
I do want to say, I want to add about BookFunnel in particular. They have promos that you can actually participate in that are free of charge if you're subscribing to the service. There's some that are all oriented around sales of your work, but I really particularly like the ones that are all geared towards building your mailing list. So sharing your top funnel freebie that at the top of this list actually. The freebie book that you're giving out. So you can, or any book in your catalog that you want to give away for free to get people on your mailing list. So that's a free tool. Yeah. It's part of the subscription, so it's not actually free. But if you're already using BookFunnel, it's a free part of the service. It's been very helpful for me.
Yeah, and I think Damon's kept the price low. It's like $10 a month or something, so it's pretty affordable for anyone using it.
Jim Heskett has confused which show he's watching. And
he's watching something else. I don't know what he's
saying, which, by the way, if you're interested, it will be live tomorrow, so you can tune in for Story on the Spot on Facebook. So, just a free plug. Free plug.
Even funnier version of this Kevin and Nick discourse going on tomorrow. You can believe it. It gets better, folks. Let's bump forward. So one of the things we have to talk about whenever we talk about getting people's personal and private information, in this case, email addresses and names, phone numbers, all that. Well, maybe phone numbers. The law. There are things like GDPR, CAN-SPAM Act, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 2001, all kinds of things like that. And then my favorite one and the most important one is common sense. And so just real quick, if you're building a mailing list, you're asking people for their private information. People really don't like to get spam. We all know this. None of us enjoy getting spam emails. And so don't be a spammer. That's kind of this is what this all comes down to, is don't spam people. And that just means don't send emails to people who have not specifically signed up for your list using one of the aforementioned routes. Even advertising is allowed. You can advertise, get their email address. They're opting to sign up for a list, but don't go buy a mailing list from somewhere, or don't go and grab all your contacts in Outlook and dump them into a CSV file and make that your mailing list. Specifically, people need to sign up for your list, or you can get in trouble. You can get shut down, or you can get your email service shut down, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And common sense really is the winner here, right? That's the no-brainer. Don't think I need to say any more about all that. So let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into how to actually build a mailing list or increase the size of a mailing list. We call it growth hacking, right? It should say 2021. Growth hacking, meaning how can you take what you're doing and do it better, do the things that aren't working less, and where to find people to sign up for your mailing list, essentially. We mentioned before the call to action is really important. Putting it in your Kindle version, for example, I mentioned that. Most authors assume, well, that just means at the end of the book, drop a link that says, hey, if you enjoyed this, there's a lot more. Click this link and sign up for my mailing list. I would urge you to test other places as well. I know Kevin's done this. I've done this before as well. I put a call to action in the front of my book and the back of my book that both go to my mailing list. I've even tested right in the middle of a book. Now, I've put it in a book that's actually a collection of books, like a box set or a short story anthology. I've done it in both of those. In the short story collection, it was, you were one of the authors, Kevin. It was like every author had their own call to action at the end of their story. But I've tried this for books that I'm the sole author on, box sets, for example, where every single book has did you like this one? Sign up. Did you like it? Sign up. And it's not really spammy because it's my book that they signed up or they bought with their own money. And I'm not doing it every single page. It's at the end of it makes sense. It's not right in the middle of a chapter, right? But these are things to test. You can toss that out there and see if people click on it. Track the link and make sure it's working, and then you'll be able to get some data on which one people are clicking on. And then if you still feel like it's too much, then take out the ones that don't work as well. Right.
I think that you can find natural breaking points. I've considered testing this in the middle of just a regular novel all on its own, maybe at the halfway mark, like between chapters or something,
Yeah.
just to see if people would respond. And you can use special URLs. You can use URL shorteners to get a unique URL for that. So like Bitly is one of those. And there's all kinds of shorteners out there to get a special unique URL to point them directly to where they sign up for your mailing list.
Absolutely.
I
If you're
wouldn't
part
go
of
nuts
Amazon
with it. Don't put it in every chapter.
don't put in every chapter.
Yeah.
And if you're an Amazon affiliate, you can use their program to get short links to. Well, actually, that would be just to Amazon products. I apologize. That wouldn't work.
That would just
But
be
yeah,
for
there's
buying. Yeah. Yeah.
for buying it, right?
Yeah.
You can try putting these in other people's books. If you're a reader of any esteem, you've read a paperback novel from back in the day where the back of the book has a full page cover design and ad for another book that publishing company is trying to sell. Maybe it's related to the book you just read. Maybe it's in the series, and sometimes it's just completely unrelated, but it's another book that they want to sell. We can do the same thing very easily digitally. It doesn't cost us anything to add in a cover. I've done this same thing as well. The cover image links to my mailing list, and I've had other authors drop that into the back of their book to test to see if it actually works. Obviously, your website should have your mailing list everywhere. That should be the number one call to action, in my opinion, is get on the mailing list.
Yeah.
And then if you have social profiles, I wrote a book a while ago called Indie Author Mastery. It's about this idea that our website is our home base. We own it, right? That's ours. But a Facebook page, Twitter account, those cesspools are not ours, and they can go away at any time, as we know. And so you should definitely put your links to your call to action to your mailing list on those social profiles. But my opinion, I think link back to your website where you have that call to action already built in.
Something I was just thinking about was, how a lot of books, you'll find some books have that chapter preview at the end of the book. And it's usually like, the next book in a series or a sequel to it or whatever. Sometimes traditional publishers often would put like a preview of a different author's book if the author, the current author didn't have anything else to go to, right? I don't think anybody really ever reads those, but it would be interesting to test if you were to put an image of your cover for the next book at the end of the book with a blurb, a call to action that says, read the first chapter for free. And instead of putting it in the book, it goes to an actual web page where they can read that first chapter that also funnels them to get on your list and to maybe even buy the next book.
Absolutely. You mentioned a word called funnel, which is kind of in reference to what we're talking about, is just different ways of gathering all these cyber people into your funnel, which is your call to action, and ending up on your mailing list. All of the things you do are basically more or less convoluted versions of that. And so the way to think about this, the way to approach it as a new author, building a mailing list, or even as an author who's done this before with some simpler things, is the sky's the limit. There's really no limit to what you can do with this. If you can think of a website or think of a service that you use, there's probably a way to attach something to it to get people from that funneled over to you. And sometimes it's as easy as advertising. If you're on a site like Facebook, you can pay money to Facebook. They'll gladly take your money to send people on Facebook over to your website and sign up for your mailing list. This is actually how I built my list early on. I got about 20,000 subscribers in the first 2 years. And most of it was Facebook advertising. Now, back then it was cheaper per click generally, but you can still do that today. It's still just as effective. It's just a little bit more expensive. Billboards are one example of this, kind of making it, I say the word convoluted, but really just getting out of the box with it, right? All the authors that we know are talking about advertising on Facebook and Amazon. All the authors we know are talking about building their website. Not many authors I hear are talking about billboards. I'm working on slowly. One day there's going to be a company or website. I've set up kind of a sample of it called roadtripreads.com. And the idea would be I buy per click billboard advertising on these digital billboards around the United States and world. And as people or truckers or, carpoolers or whoever is driving by, they're on a road trip and they see a billboard that has, hey, would you like to listen to a free audiobook? And they go to that they hit their website or whatever, and and immediately an audiobook of mine starts playing. So these are just ways of playing around with the idea of how can I get people who aren't right now reading a book onto into my world or onto my platform. And part of that is this, what I mentioned before, the home-based strategy. You own your website. You own your own content there, or you should anyway. If you're using a WordPress.com website or a Squarespace.com hosted website, probably best at some point to try to branch out on your own and host it yourself and all that. But the point is, because you want to own it. All the other things that we talked about, those are outposts. Those are things that can and will change. They could go away completely. But they just change a little bit. If you've ever advertised on Instagram or tried to build a following on Instagram, you know this to be true. They will let you get really successful with one or two different strategies and then completely pull the rug out from under you. So don't spend a whole lot of time doing that, in my opinion. My advice, if you want to build a mailing list, have a presence there, but don't focus on that as your bread and butter, because at some point it's going to go away, guaranteed. Your website and things like your Amazon sales page, those are the best places to find readers. And however you have to get people to those places, advertising or whatever, that's gonna win you a lot of points. Let's see what's next here. So Kevin, anything else on that before we keep going?
No, I think that you covered it pretty well.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk about some specific technical things here, a little more technical. This idea of when you do find that reader, what do you do with them? They've agreed to sign up for your mailing list, and they just are going to get your book, maybe if you have a freebie or incentive on your website. What do you do after that? Well, I like to call it an autoresponder campaign or series of emails. And I call this specific type of autoresponder campaign an onboarding sequence. And this is literally just getting people on board with your content. It's sharing the message that you've got, your brand, your tone, your genre. So that means if Kevin joins my email mailing list, he's going to get an email from not the robot that wrote ad copy, but Nick, the author, who's a real person who lives in Hawaii and has a family. And he's going to get all kinds of little tidbits about my life. I like woodworking or whatever, whiskey, for example. He's also going to get information about my books, of course, what I'm currently working on. But the point is to make this time insensitive, right? So it doesn't matter when they get on the list. They're going to get the same set of 5 or 10 or whatever emails from you at a certain scheduled time, and then slowly be onboarded into hearing from you. And what this does is it welcomes people onto your list. It hypes up the things that you've given them already. So I have one of my onboarding emails is the history of my writing career. Now, that sounds a little self-serving. It is. It's my mailing list. But the point is people love that. The readers love to hear how I got started as a writer. It also establishes the expectations. And this is the most important because I do this full-time. Kevin does this full-time. And so you as an author, if you don't do it full-time, you want to do it full-time, right? That's why you're here. So you need to establish the expectation early on that, hey, I gave you these freebies. I am absolutely happy that you're on my list. Here's the deal. I'm also going to sell you some things. And you don't have to just say it bluntly like that, but just establish the expectation. I'm a full-time writer, or I'm a writer trying to make a living at this. I've given you the freebies. I hope that you'll stick around. Every now and then I'll mention a book that's for sale. That's all you have to do. But this is a great way to get people onboarded onto your list and set that tone.
Yep. Yeah, it's not actually all that difficult to do, and without being crass about it, there are several ways to do that. I like so this all comes back to the ask thing for me, but I like to just ask people and give them a reason why. Giving people a reason why is very important and very powerful, more so than you probably think. But if you were to say, hey, would you mind I have a book on sale for 99 cents. Would you mind checking it out, because every sale I get helps me as a working author. That because is enough to seal the deal for a big chunk of people out there. So don't forget to give people a reason why you want them to go follow your call to action in email.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mentioned this onboarding sequence. It's a special type of autoresponder, but what is an autoresponder? Core. I gave a brief definition of this drip campaign type set of emails. You pre-write these emails, and they get sent out to your subscribers at a certain scheduled time. You get to set the schedule for them, and you get to decide what's on those emails. But the goal of these autoresponders, like I said, is to set expectations, but it's also to further your career without you having to do anything actively, because you've already written these emails, right? This is a force multiplier. So you write this email one time, and it gets sent out to 100,000 people over the course of your career. These autoresponders always should add value, like everything you do as an author. Payment is value, by the way. But they allow you to kind of practice strategies of turning these readers to super fans. They'll promote your list a little bit. They'll help you with non-book sales. Is something I've talked about and preached about at conferences, where you, as you level up as an author, there are things besides books that you can sell. You can sell your time to people. If you're big enough, people will pay to sit down with you and have a beer or a coffee or whatever and just talk to you. Kevin Kelly, the founder of Wired magazine, he has this article called 1,000 True Fans, and I go back to it all the time. It's just essentially at its core, it's if you can find 1,000 people who will buy anything you put out, you will have a successful full-time career. And autoresponders are probably the best way to do that, because you're taking somebody who's interested in you and turning them into a fan of you. And that's very different. It's a subtle difference, but it's really, really crucial. So all methods you use, whether it's an autoresponder or whatever, they need to build trust with the person reading the emails, right? So it's your story. Like I mentioned before, I'm into whiskey or woodworking or things that start with W, writing. That's the story behind the story, how the book was written, where I was when things like that, and then just personal anecdotes. I feel like people hate that I'm always sending emails about the beach that my family and I are going to because we live in Hawaii. Turns out a lot of people really like that, and it kind of helps them live vicariously through us, I think. So do things like that. People really, they just eat that up. I know, Kevin, you're the same way, right? You always were saying about the van.
Yeah, the whole van life thing
what life was like on the road.
Popular with people, so I talk about that. I talk about it, and all this stuff. It's kind of the be personable, not personal rule. Sharing not just every intimate detail of your life, but sharing the things that you're okay with being public, and that would get some interest from those readers and get them chatting with you. Because one of the other aspects of this is it's good when they reply. It's good when they actually respond to an email you sent and ask you questions and answer your questions. You should be asking questions, open-ended questions in these emails to encourage people to interact with you, because an engaged reader will become one of those 1,000 true fans that Kim Kelly talked about.
Absolutely. The first email actually in my autoresponder onboarding sequence is, what are you reading? What are you currently reading? Now, a lot of people will get this email a few days after they've signed up for my mailing list. They're reading my freebie that I've given them, 3 full-length thrillers. But a lot of times they'll mention all these other books. A lot of times they say, I'm reading Kevin Tomlinson's book, or Ernie Dempsey is another guy in our genre. And I always respond to those and say, hey, that's a great list. Thank you. I haven't read that yet, or whatever. But that builds rapport back and forth. And it's absolutely critical for turning a reader or an interested person into a super fan. So we talked about autoresponders. That's a drip campaign, a series of emails right once. It becomes a force multiplier for your brand. But then we have these other things called campaigns. And these are useful because it covers everything else. This is usually people call these an email or just a one-off email. That's what a campaign means in my book, and we'll get to why we've called it that in a little bit later. Hint, hint. But you can use these for new and upcoming releases. They're usually time sensitive, meaning, here's what I'm doing right now that may not be relevant 3 years from now. You can promote other books. This is where we talked about newsletter swaps. If there's special requests, one of the things that Kevin and I and a few other thriller authors are launching is a top secret book club type thing. And so I had a special request to go out to my mailing list, asking people to take a brief survey. Just, are you interested in this sort of thing? Yes or no? And then off-topic info. We think is off-topic. We think it's not really building our brand, but it really is. Now, we can't just go talk about, how we're getting audited by the IRS, and has nothing to do with our author career, right? People want to hear about us, typically good news, and they want to hear about things that are at least related to us or our writing. Those are kind of the 2 big topics.
Yep.
We have another quote come in from this guy. Email marketing really is pretty neat. So, in case you're still wondering, here's a quote. The internet said it
I'm
true.
buying this guy's book.
Joe, his some made up dude. Same one from before. Actually.
I've signed up for his newsletter.
Good for you. Good for you. So, how do you hack your way to, that should say 20,000 subscribers, not 2020. If you only have 2,000 subscribers, here's how you get to the other 20. Automate everything. Now, we mentioned autoresponders, but you can automate all the little intricate details of your funnel as well. If you have an ad linking to your freebie, use an affiliate link or a short link is really what I mean in order to track that. And you may not want to use that data right now, but you'll have it for later. And so automate that kind of stuff now and save yourself a lot of time. I know this doesn't sound like how to get more subscribers, but it really is, because what I'm saying is if you automate something now, it allows you to forget about that thing you've automated and go build something new that finds more readers, right? So instead of every day trying to look at an ad and trying to figure out how to get that one ad to work, try to automate that ad as best you can. There's tools out there to do it, and that's not what this webinar is about. But get that automated so that you can go do other things. And you either can write more or you can go find more readers to add to your mailing list. Design with email in mind. Again, I'm going to hint at something we're going to talk about a little later, but most email services allow you what's called a WYSIWYG editor. It's what you see is what you get is the acronym. And that's a typical HTML web page designer, which is great. We all know how to use that. You click, highlight the text, make it bold, send it out, whatever. The problem with it is that every inbox is going to see that email a little bit differently. If you're just using standard HTML, sometimes a GIF, and it is pronounced GIF, not GIF, by the way, that is official. You heard it here. Every inbox might have a different way of showing the GIF. For example, Microsoft, known for many brilliant things like this one, and take the smiley face emoji and turn it into a capital J. No one knows why they do that, but that's what they do. So if you use an editor like that, just be aware that every inbox that you send that email to is going to potentially either show your content a little bit differently every time or not show it at all. And that means it could end up in spam or junk folder. So design with email in mind. That typically means keep your email kind of a 600 pixel width and no more. Don't use gigantic images that take 20 minutes to load. Try to get them squished down and compressed. Send everything multiple times. This is something that I think people are afraid to do. I hear all the time authors don't want to spam. They don't want to spam. But the truth is you can only spam someone if it ends up in their inbox and they see it. Right? So if you send an email to somebody and then you send that same email to them again and they see it again, that gets into the realm of spam. But most of the time, what I'm talking about is most of the time people will get an email and they'll never see it. It'll either get sucked into the interweb pipes or into their junk folder or spam. And if you just send it again to the people who haven't opened that email the first time, there's a good chance they'll see it. Kevin, you and I do this a lot really well. Your strategy is to kind of send the email and then you schedule like 2 or 3 even other emails that go out automatically to the people that didn't open the previous email, right?
Yeah, I kind of do a little cascade, and sometimes, most of the time I try to modify so I send the first email, and then I say, I use our tool to send it again to everyone who didn't open it. And I usually do that 2 or 3 days after that first email. And then I send that same first email again, but sometimes I'll modify it so that it's a little different than it was, different subject line. Maybe I use a different image or something, so it seems fresh. And then I repeat that. And I'll just kind of cascade it several times throughout like the month, depending on what it's promoting.
Are you okay? Are you about to get attacked by like a pterodactyl or something?
There's a bird that's somewhere over in the trees to my right.
I assumed it was perched on top of the computer, like right next to the speaker or something.
It's a bluebird. He's very pretty too, but he's disturbed by my presence, I think. So.
Apparently so.
Sorry about that.
No worries. It's fine. I was like, I want to make sure you're not about to get attacked here and carried off.
Hey, before we go on, we have a comment from TK Kess Eldridge. It says, when I first started as an indie, everyone told me do a newsletter, build a list, and I didn't get it. 2 months later, someone explained to me as You need this because your readers/contacts are yours. Don't leave it in the hands of social media or a shop like Amazon. I'm really glad I found you guys. We're really glad you found us too.
We're really glad. Thank you. Yeah, she's an author email user and loves it apparently, and has been with us for a little while now. And so, this is what it's for. This is what we're doing. We're trying to help authors specifically. So, yeah, he's absolutely right. That's what I'm talking about with the outpost and home base argument. Is if you own it, great, build the crap out of it and send that out to the world. But if you don't own it, just take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, make your Amazon sales page look as good as you can and fix your description and all that. But don't spend every waking moment of every day and all your free time trying to get that into shape.
Right.
Probably going to be better off writing the next book every single time. Last couple of things on here. On board with surveys. This is really helpful. This is a good example. A survey is just a very simple question at its core. It can be more than that. It can be, really complicated and multifaceted. But I'm talking about just asking a question, opening those kind of gates so that you can build that relationship early on. I mentioned I just ask what you're currently reading when you sign up for my mailing list. That's one of the first emails you'll get. What are you reading? And I actually respond to all those. A lot of times because reading my genre, I know those authors that they're reading, or I've read the authors that they're reading. And so we can talk about that. Hey, I heard, yeah, you're reading Kevin Tumlinson. He kind of sucks. You should read Nick Thacker instead. For example.
That's what I tell my readers.
Exactly. And you can offer special stuff to people who share your list. This is something I haven't played with a whole lot recently, but it works really well. If you can entice people once they've signed up for your mailing list, you're asking them to do something else. You're saying, hey, if you do this, I'll give you this. And it doesn't have to be sleazy or shady or anything. It's really just a simple, hey, I'm trying to grow. And that shouldn't be a surprise to you. I'd love for you to help. And here's what you can do. If you just forward this to a friend, and they sign up for my mailing list, I'll give you another book for free or something like that. It's just a great way to keep the funnel going. So there's another way to build a list. I would argue it's probably the best way to build a list. It's just not the cheapest because it's not free. And that is advertising. Advertising is a great way to build a mailing list. Again, that should say 20,000 subscribers. Unless you're at fewer than 20,000 or 2,020 subscribers, then this is how you can get to 2020. Never mind. Kevin, are you still doing Facebook ads or any kind of ads for mailing list signups?
I haven't been doing those lately, no, but they've been very effective.
Yeah. I've cut back a lot on Facebook. I've sort of found that there's good seasons for Facebook and bad seasons, and no one knows what season's which. You have to $5 and you find out. Yeah. So I've kind of pulled back on Facebook. Really, it's not because I want to stop growing the mailing list. It's that I want to take those dollars and focus on making money. So I've moved those advertising dollars over to Amazon, for example, which aren't ads to grow newsletter signups, at least not directly. They're ads to sell more books or get more page reads, for example. But the way you do this with Facebook is you build an ad. Images work best. So meaning, more image, very little, no text on the image, that kind of thing. Don't put your book cover, that kind of stuff. Find an image like a scene or a setting that represents your book is a great way to do it. And write a quick description and, some copy there and test it and do all the things that you can do in Facebook to, A/B test. But then when somebody clicks this link, it goes directly to your website, specifically to your freebie sign-up page. And mine is at, nickthacker.com/free-books. But people click on a Facebook ad, they go right there. And then they sign up for my mailing list that way. And I mentioned tracking. It's sort of against the Facebook terms of service and Amazon terms of service to use an affiliate link in this little ad link, I guess you should say. But everybody does anyway. And the reason for that is Amazon tells us not to do it, but then they don't give us a way to build a tracking link. I'm sorry. I'm explaining the way to set that up to send it to an Amazon sales page. What I mean to say is you're technically not supposed to use or link back to your own website with this stuff. But the way we do it is usually I'm getting over my words here, Kevin. You need to correct me because I'm talking about something different. For newsletter signups, I think it's Right? No, okay.
Yeah, you
Never
can
mind.
send people to your site for newsletter signups.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm
You're
getting way ahead of myself here.
Yeah, you're thinking of sales, and you were the point you were making, and it's still valid, is that they don't like you to use the affiliate links, but it's the only way with Amazon that we have to know whether an ad is working. So it's kind of
Yes.
a workaround. So, but if you've got if you're just using this to build a newsletter, you can send ads to anywhere. You can actually do this on BookBub as well. Oh, you've already covered
I
BookBub. I'm
got it
sorry.
there. I
So
just
you already
typed it
got
and
us.
published it right now.
This
Just showed
this
up.
is what I get for not paying any attention to you whatsoever. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm used to it. Yeah. So using a tool like BookBub, who, if you don't have an advertising platform, partners.bookbub.com, you can set up something like this is an example. It's a Kindle countdown deal. Or if you're wide, you can set up a deal through Apple or whoever. But then focus on 1 week for doing a promotion. Like, for example, the Kindle countdown deal, don't set any price points, just put it at 99 cents and then go for a week with that or 5 days with that. And then you use this BookBub ad to send people to your website. This is another example, right? So you can send people directly to your website, your free books page, whatever. That page has the Facebook Pixel installed, which will gather information about the people visiting, link them to their Facebook profile, and then track them like Big Brother, which is really creepy, but it's really, really helpful because then you know a little bit more about the demographic, and you can use that pixel as a targeting audience on Facebook ads. So that's what I'm talking about with expanding the funnel. You're just basically finding different ways and creative ways of taking obvious things like setting up a BookBub ad that goes to a Kindle countdown deal. Great. We all do that. There's another way to set that up though, and you can set that BookBub ad to not go to a deal, but to go to your website. Right. But then instead of just leaving it there, set up something on your website to gather information about that person using a Facebook Pixel is my example. And then advertise them again in Facebook. So just around and around until you've gathered all the information you can and picked up anyone you can.
Just so it's out there, BookBub does not like for you, and it's actually against their terms of service, to send someone to a page specifically to capture their email address. So you would have to send them there for an actual free book or discounted book or whatever, and then you are free, according to the good folks at BookBub. You are free to have a pop-up that comes up and says, hey, get this free book, or get this, get on my mailing list, or whatever you want the offer to be. But they actually don't like and will shut down an ad that is just pointing to the page to get them on the mailing list, because they are themselves a mailing list. So you're technically competing with them at that point. So but I've been told by higher ups and people in the know at BookBub that if you are sending someone to it doesn't even have to necessarily be a sale or anything. You can actually send people to, say, your series page on your website, for example, as long as there is something there that the reader would purchase, or otherwise, maybe they're getting it for free, but it's through a retailer or whatever. That's fine, and you can have a pop-up box or a box that's on the page, or an offer somewhere on the page. It just can't be the primary thing on the page. That's what I've been told by the BookBub folks.
And that's great. One of the ways you can, if you're thinking about that and from their perspective, if somebody clicks on that book that's a completely free download, you have to still, you could still send that somewhere. So you could have a pop-up then that says, hey, where would you like us to send your book? And it's an email.
Yeah.
And then in that email, you could say, hey, would you like to join the mailing list? Or, just click reply and you'll be subscribed, or something like that. You could still use that as a workaround. Speaking of workarounds, this last one is something I've played with a little bit. I tested it earlier this year. The second, I mentioned the series of books I wrote called Indie Author Mastery. The second book is called BookBub Mastery. And I mentioned this in that book. Kevin's got the Ask Us Anything over. I don't think you can read it, but it just says change description on Amazon. And what I'm referring to, it's okay. We forgive you. What I'm referring to is changing your actual description on your books page on Amazon to link to your freebie. Now, this is technically against Amazon's terms of service. However, I've used it a few times, and what they do, your mileage may vary, but what they do for me is they tell me I'm not allowed to do that, and I need to change it immediately. And then I just change it immediately, and all's well in the world. But what I've done, and the reason I mentioned the BookBub book that I wrote is I've done this right when I have a BookBub featured deal go live. So I changed the description, and then a couple days later, my BookBub deal goes out to millions of people, and I get thousands upon thousands of people hitting that Amazon sales page from BookBub, and either grabbing my book or not, but then seeing that link in there, copying and pasting to their website, and ending up on my mailing list. And I've gotten 2,500 subscribers in a day just from doing that. It is technically not allowed, according to Amazon. But it's one of those things where, if you wanted to play with it and test it a little bit, you'll most likely just get a slap on the wrist. Don't take my word for it, though, because Amazon is known to just do extremely ridiculous, over-the-top things for no reason, like completely blow up your account. So don't come complaining to me if that's what happens.
Good rule of thumb is don't play games with Amazon. Uh-oh.
Don't play games with Amazon. If you're wide, maybe you've got it. So, right. Kevin, I wanted to talk about something here that I think you may have heard of. It's called author.email.
I've heard of lots of things.
You've heard a lot of things. What would you say about author.email?
Yes. The whole point of this, when Nick and I kind of started kicking around, and just the bare bones idea of it several years ago now, was that there are tons of email marketing services out there, but they're almost always geared to a totally different sort of email marketer than an independent author would be. There's a lot of crossover. I mean, we're a hybridized kind of marketing entity as it is. Like, we take things from the internet marketing world, the traditional marketing world, and we sort of hybridize things, put things together. But nothing has ever really been geared specifically for you and me as an author. So when we were kind of putting something together for ourselves, we started kicking around like, what features work best for us? How would we change this? How would we change that? And the end result was something that we decided would be worthy to share with all authors everywhere. So that's why Nick and I originally founded author.email. So, and it's grown. It's good. It's all kinds of crazy stuff has happened since then. Things we can't even talk about yet. But we've got a lot of really cool, interesting features. A lot of the same features you're used to with, much more expensive email marketing systems. It's just as robust as all of those, but for a lot less out of your pocket. So that was our criteria. Look at that. There's a link. There's another link. Let's just keep putting links up there. There's a link. There's a link.
Excuse me. The author.email one, if it throws you a security thing, it's just you have to add the if you go to authoremail.com/get-started, that'll get you there, or just authoremail.com, that'll get you there as well. You'll see a pricing example on the homepage where we've compared some of the other services out there. Now, pricing aside, there is literally nothing else like this. No service is focused exclusively on authors. No email service, I should say. And that was really important for us. We are building some things that are going to be exclusively, it's going to be through and through for authors. You'll be able to the drop we've built, not going to be, excuse me, random dummy content. It'll be book covers and your book title here, things like that right away. This is for me. This is how I can build my mailing list. Similarly, we have a template gallery that eventually, right now we've only got a few in there, but we're going to roll this out to some big name authors who will add their templates to this gallery, and you can just grab their actual email template. If you wanted to send the Nick Thacker email template that I use, that's in there. You can pull that in and you use it tomorrow. Just things like that we're slowly working on that are going to make this even better. But right now, as it stands, just about every feature you can imagine, if not every feature you can imagine, and any of these other services that you might already be using, we have, and you can already do that. And we've got a forum if there's a question that you need to have answered, and we've got a documentation library, knowledge base, and of course an email address. And you can send us an email and get help. But this is something that a lot of others so far are really excited about, not just because of the price, but all that to say, if none of that excites you, go check out the price. I think that'll excite you. If you've used MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or any of the other services and paid them real money, I think you'll be impressed at the price.
So I want to pop up this comment from Jim Heskett because this is actually a good idea.
Yes, thank you.
For once from Jim. So it says,
never thought it would happen.
This is not.
Here it is.
Keep that freebie URL. Yeah, keep that freebie URL out of your description. Put it in the editorial reviews instead. Amazon's cool with that. Amazon pulled my book once during a book club because I did what Nick did. Well, maybe you're just not as cool as Nick is.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Really what it is Amazon read the book that you had, and they were like, oh, get rid of this thing. It's going to this.
No, that's actually a good idea. The editorial comments are not as strictly monitored. Now, they don't have as prominent a placement. So, what Nick was doing was taking advantage of the the first thing people see when they log in. But the thing is, Amazon has the more time that passes, the more Amazon likes to push anything useful that we can use to market the books off the page. They've reduced the amount of text that appears automatically to like a line or two. They moved it down below a bunch of other buttons and recommendations and things. They recommend hundreds of other authors' stuff on your page. So it's when it comes down to it, Amazon's going to do what Amazon's going to do. But yeah, the more you tempt the Amazon fates, the more likely it's going to be you get bitten in the butt.
That's true. Yeah. So if anyone's got any questions about email, about growing a list, go ahead and drop it in. It's a good time to do some Q&A as we wrap up the last 10 minutes or so here. I was going to say, Kevin, I think what we should try doing is changing the book cover. So it's just text that says, visit me at nickthacker.com/freebooks. And that's on the book cover. And throw that up live on Amazon.
They do have some rules about that. So, but if you did it as a, you might be able to get away with like a pull quote.
Yeah,
that
there
has
you go.
your URL in it. Yeah. I first discovered this book at nickthacker.com.
What an amazing book from nickthacker.com. Yeah, it's worth a shot. It's worth a test. I'm just saying, someone out there besides me, go ahead and test it. You can put it all on the line.
Exactly. All right.
All right. We'll hang out here for a couple minutes, I guess. If there's a question, or if not, we can go about our day.
We got a few people watching, so on both Facebook and YouTube. So hello.
A few thousand people watching. Wow. Thank you for tuning in.
It's a generous way to explain single digits, but yes. So TK asks, do you have samples of the surveys?
Not yet. Not yet. That is a very, very beta feature. I would almost say out at this point. We've activated surveys in I think I might have gotten cut out there, but we recommend going with a survey like Google Survey or something like that. Did I cut out the whole thing? Cut out?
Yeah. I don't know how much you said, but when you came back, you gave some useful advice to use a tool like you were saying that we have a survey tool that we'll be rolling out.
Yes.
But for the moment, you could use something like Google Surveys, or WooForm is another popular one. But I like the Google Forms because it is called Google Forms.
Google Forms, yeah.
Yeah, because that's first of all, it's free. You can kind of control the look of it a little bit. It'll spit it all out as a spreadsheet if you need it. So it's a pretty useful way to run that. And you can get really creative with these things, by the way. I used Google Forms to build my typo reporter, which lets people pop in and tell me what typos they found on a book.
And you're ruining it for me too, because I sent out my beta team the other day a book that I'm about to release, and everyone complained that there was no easy way to submit like typos, and they were like, "What do we just reply to this like a pedestrian?"
You know what they call that? They call that an opportunity. I think so. I need to refine
Go
this
submit all my
process.
typos at Kevin's typos thing. He'll forward them to me.
So yeah, ask us anything else you want. We're about to wrap up. We're happy to answer any questions. For the most part, we've given you kind of an overview of. We gave you a few ways to build your mailing list. I hope those were useful. And when I started, the way I started my list was the first thing I did was email everybody already in my contact list. I didn't spam them all at once or anything. I started emailing people, telling them, hey, I have a book. I have this mailing list I'm trying to build. I mean, when Nick and I met, I had 60 people on my mailing list and had for quite a while. And so it took a long time to start building up. And it was a process of things like doing the newsletter swaps and doing putting my freebie out there on my social media posts and on my social media profiles. I would anytime I visited or was on a podcast or something, I'd mention getting on the list from there. So it takes time. It's a long game strategy. It's not going to be your overnight success tool. But the miracle of this, it's a little bit like compound interest. If you can continue to build that mailing list up and get it to a high enough number, eventually just sending out an email that says, I have a new book, is going to be a huge success story for you. So it is worth every minute that you have to spend to build that up. So TK says, thanks for the service, guys. I missed a few minutes, so I'm going to watch again. So
those were the good minutes, too. She missed a lot of really
minutes.
good stuff.
That's where all the actual useful information happened. So, so no matter where you're watching this, by the way, Facebook or YouTube, this video is going to be planted there for good, so you can go back and watch. Do us a favor and share this with your author friends and let them know that there's some useful information here they might be able to use to help build their mailing list. So if you are in a Facebook group or some other forum, feel free to share this with the link. I did share the link for getting on the onboarding mailing or waiting list in the comments. It is author.email/get-started. So go find that link and share that with as many people as you can. So that said,
yes, please,
Nick, how are we looking? Have we covered everything? Anything else we want to throw in before we wrap up?
I'm looking good. You're looking good. I'm feeling good.
Yep. I think you even got that your little dirt
dot
from your camera is still on your.
The dot's still there. I try not to move. People think it's part of my nose, but yeah, it's not me.
I keep catching myself wiping the screen or wiping my own camera. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for being a part of this. So we're really happy you were here. We're going to try to do more of these things with some more useful content in the future. So make sure you do get on that waiting list, because that's also the list we'll use to let you know about stuff like this. So that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up, and we will see you all next time.
See you later. Thank you.